Hey, I'm Michael Hall,
And I'm Gabriel Peterson.
and you're watching Innovation Coffee, brought to you by ARM. Now, I think we
Sorry
might have
about
got
that.
those backwards, Gabe.
Yeah, I realized it after I did it, but I'll get the hang of it.
All right. So, again, welcome to Innovation Coffee. I am Michael Hall,
And I'm Gabriel Peterson.
and today we are going without Robert because unfortunately he is feeling a little bit under the weather today, but we are going to keep the show going. So, we do these every week. We bring in a bunch of experts from ARM and outside of ARM to really dive deep into what's happening in the world of ARM technology, whether it's devices, whether it's servers or it's gaming rigs. We do this, like I said, every week. So if you do like this video broadcast, remember to like and subscribe to this channel so that you will see all of our future episodes. We've got some really cool guests coming on today who are talking about a new AI product that they're building. But before that, Gabe, we wanted to talk about an upcoming event that you are going to be at. Isn't that right?
Yeah, so ARM is going to be at Google Cloud Next on the 29th to the 31st of this month. So if for anyone who's there, obviously come by, say hi. We're going to be trying to sign up more people to the developer program, and it looks like it's going to be a good time.
And what is Google Cloud Next? What's the topic of that?
I was going to read the tagline, but it doesn't really say much. Next 23 is our global exhibition of inspiration, innovation, and education, which sounds great, but doesn't really tell you anything. It's just a cloud solutions conference, essentially. So it should be very interesting. It'll be the first cloud event I've been to, so I'm looking forward to
And
it.
ARM is going to have a booth there, right?
I believe so, yes.
Do you know what we're showing off?
I do not. I probably should have come prepped with that information, but no. I'm going to be there mainly from the developer point of view. And so I'm not sure, like when we had GDC and we were there supporting the events team and the client team, we kind of learned about everything as we arrived and saw what ARM was actually showing off. So I was kind of planning on doing the same this time. Although for being able to talk about it on these streams, I probably should know ahead of time.
That's okay. Pretty often we show up at an event not knowing what we're getting ourselves into until we're already there.
Yep.
All right. So when and where was that again?
That is August 29th through the 31st in the Moscone Center in San Francisco.
All right. And is it too late for people to buy tickets if they haven't already got them?
Oh yes, it's been sold out for a while, but there is a free digital pass that's available, and if you want to see the keynotes and the on-demand sessions and all of those types of things, you can just go to cloud.withgoogle.com, and I believe the homepage for that will bring you to the next sign-up sheet.
All right. Our second bit of housekeeping, I was really hoping Robert was going to be here for that because we are going to make some changes to Innovation Coffee going forward. Previously, we'd all kind of cycled through. It was a little bit chaotic who was hosting, co-hosting, producing. So we've decided that going forward, we're all going to have a little bit more set roles. So you will see Robert hosting pretty much as usual. He always kind of hosted, right? But I will be more of a permanent co-host now going forward. And then Gabe is taking over like dedicated production duties. He'll still be on the show. We're going to have like a regular segment with him. But for the most part, he's going to be managing all the controls, making sure that Robert and I are staying on track, covering what we need to, have all the guests prepared with all of the links that they need.
It's definitely a lot easier to manage controlling the show when you're not also trying to pay attention. There's been definitely more than one scenario where it's like I'll look up from having done something behind the scenes, and it's like I just have no idea where the conversation is at the moment. So
It is,
Uh,
right? Like, you don't realize watching these how much behind the scenes work it takes to pull one of these off. It is a dedicated full-time position for somebody to do. And when we were just swapping back and forth who was doing that, it was hard for any of us to really get good at it. So yeah, we're making that change. We're going to see how it goes. But you will keep seeing Gabe on. He's not going to disappear. He will be on every episode, I believe, is the plan, at
yeah.
least a little bit.
Yep. To show something off at the very least.
All right.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
oh no, I was going to segue right into what you were about to. I think it's time to bring on our guests.
Yeah, so we had somebody show up in our Discord earlier this week, last week, talking about a new AI product that they're building. So their username is Smells Like ML. That's also their blog. So we got to talking with them in our Discord and asked them to come on the Innovation Coffee to tell us a little bit more about what they're doing. So I'd like to welcome on now Terry and Selma, who are behind the Smells Like ML blog and Remyx AI. Terry, Selma, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to both of you.
Before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves and your background and how you got here?
Sure. Well, Salma and I have been working together for about a decade now. We met doing applied math about that time, and soon after, as we were entering our career paths, we were really interested in what was happening, what was trending with machine learning, and saw that as a way to apply the analytical skills that we were excited to train on, and taught ourselves more about software and really got into some of these exciting applications of bringing machine learning to resource-constrained devices. We were really inspired by some of what we were seeing happening around maybe 2017 or so. And we started a blog where we were entering hackathons and prototyping hardware products that we were interested in. A lot of this was kind of like owning the project from beginning to end, getting our own data and framing our own challenges and open sourcing that. And I guess, we've had different turns in our career experience to kind of build up on some of those skills. But in the last year or so, we became really excited by the capabilities of generative AI to make machine learning more accessible through like easier UIs or unblocking people on data access. So we really, over the last, this year especially, have been focusing our attention around Remyx AI, where we've got a platform for helping people create custom machine learning models. No code, no data. We have an agent that kind of guides that process.
Yeah, I would say essentially embedded hardware is kind of like has a special place in our heart. I think the way that we started actually getting into the combination of AI or machine learning technologies with hardware is through a lot of those hackathons that we saw and participated in Hacksphere. We got to connect some of with folks from ARM at that time, and we were really excited to bring some of the software technologies that were emerging at the time. So things like computer vision and all of this really awesome, flexible software onto hardware devices that are really small. The time that we started is kind of practically, not really doable or kind of barely there. So there was a lot of hacking involved. But nowadays, it seems more and more that those technologies are becoming more accessible for smaller and smaller hardware, and we're really excited to make that even easier for other folks to get into and start building really cool stuff.
There is a lot more AI ML capable devices coming out now. I know that's a big thing from our side. We're really excited about that push. So it's really cool to see you doing that. For anybody who's watching us on the live stream, if you have questions you would like to ask, you can put them right into the YouTube comments, and we will ask them here. But also, we've got some questions for you. Gabe and I do.
Sure.
So my first one was, is Remyx AI built on top of something like ChatGPT?
We do use ChatGPT for the agent. So the agent is is this interface that the user can interact with through chat. And because OpenAI's ChatGPT has APIs, tools, functions is what they call it, it allows us to have a really robust kind of conversational turns to get all of the inputs necessary to perform a job for somebody. So we've found that to be the best, most robust conversational agent that we can build. We've also experimented with fine-tuning our own custom LLMs. Meta's released Llama 2, and that's made a really powerful competitor for hosting your own language models. So we see in general using LLMs as like a really powerful way to raise the user interface to like a really high-level conversational one where you just specify requirements. And then because that agent has these tools in the back which map to containerized workloads being run in the cloud, it's possible for us to just go from the requirements to the resulting artifact that you're interested in without a whole lot of input. So it's like really emphasizing LLMs for the part of this that is simplifying the interaction. But on top of that, we also use other techniques to produce image data sets. That's our focus right now. We think that's where our spike is and where it's underserved by other tools to produce image data sets. These stable diffusion models and the like have reached a new threshold in terms of photorealism. And so there's a lot of practical applications where you can create data sets or even use the data sets like the Lion 5B. So billion scale image data that's got a lot of information like captions alongside it makes it possible for us to construct data sets on the fly that are specialized to your use case. And we were thinking about this a lot because, we've been building our own custom models for different applications. And practically speaking, if you go pull a model off the shelf on a model zoo, you're going to have false positives like seeing a train that isn't there because it was optimized for a data set that you aren't actually going to encounter samples like that in the wild. So if you're looking at models that are trained on ImageNet or models that are trained on Pascal VOC dataset, it's just a jumping off point, a good starting point for using transfer learning to specialize the model for your deployment scenario. And we wanted to use or build a pipeline that basically streamlined that whole process. So when we're looking at what does it take to pull off custom computer vision model, usually you're starting from a good checkpoint and you're using transfer learning. You're creating data sets that are a little better specialized to the objects that you expect to encounter in the field of view in your deployment scenario. There's also a bit of domain knowledge to it and just empirical hyperparameter optimization, just a lot of compute to get the best model. And so we can use agents and we can use these image data set generators and we can basically condition this agent to use the type of domain knowledge that we would use when we're engaging with the customer to specialize a model for them. And bringing all those ingredients together with kind of classical auto ML hyperparameter optimization techniques, we can bring a model to somebody who doesn't really know a lot about what all is involved in creating a custom machine learning model.
So I really love this use of ChatGPT. Like, you're not just using it to answer somebody's questions or like tell them how to do something. You're actually, ChatGPT is going to build that model using those APIs, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So essentially what we found to kind of bring down the barrier to more folks to be able to create this, essentially the software that can run on any device, we need to abstract all the ingredients that go into making those models. And, if you're someone new to the field of machine learning, you probably don't know all the terminology of like, making sure that you have a train and a validation set and a test set that's a holdout set, or, what kind of architecture you might need for whatever project you're building. So the idea is to take the ChatGPT interface to have a conversation with that user and then be able to kind of, suss out or being able to pick out the components that need to be put together. Once we kind of understand what are the requirements from the user side, all of that gets fed into some pre-baked recipes that we've already kind of put together in containers that run on our backend. So essentially, once we figure out what are your requirements and what you're trying to build, that then gets translated to kind of like a reproducible loop.
Tested.
That then gets produced into a model, which we're hoping to expand on that further.
Yeah.
That is really innovative and really cool to see. You mentioned, I think, Hackster.io when you first started talking about how you got your initial start. And I see we've got Jessica here in the YouTube comments. Hi, Jessica, who runs Hackster.io. So that's good to see.
Yeah, big fans. I think we started off with a contest for Hologram, I think was the company. And ever since we started with that, we were hooked and just wanted to keep sharing more and more projects.
That's great. Gabe, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. So for someone who's looking at this live stream or watching it after the fact and is interested in Remyx AI, how would they go about getting started? Is there something they should learn ahead of time? Is there a foundational knowledge that they should have? Or is it, if you can use like the automatic GUI from Stable Diffusion, is that the type of person who could jump in and start using Remyx AI?
I would say it's kind of like the automatic GUI where essentially you just log into our site. So if you go into our landing page, remyx.ai, you'll see a big red button on getting started. From there, you can make an account and it'll show you an interface where you can chat with our agent. So the way that you would start is you would start talking with the Remyx agent and describing your project. So for example, say I'm building a turtle bot and I want it to be able to follow a dog around the house, for example. So you might need to train a model that can detect or localize a cat or a dog versus some other object. So with that conversation with our agent, it'll understand to parse out, okay, these are the specific labels you need. It needs to run on a turtlebot, so it probably needs to be very small. So it's going to pick a smaller architecture. And then once it has all the requirements, by asking you questions along the way to kind of guide you on what information we need, then you'll start seeing a model just train in the interface. So once that's all good and baked, which usually takes 30 minutes or a little bit longer depending on your training, you'll be able to click into that and then see your model. You could test it, you could download the file, and then go from there. Right now, probably the knowledge that you would need to know, which we have also some information in the interface. We have like boilerplate code that you can use to learn or understand how to run that model asset once it's done. But in the future, we're hoping to make software that would make it even easier to actually use that model in whatever project you have. So it would be kind of extending that chat-based interface to also for the deployment part of it. So being able to use it in your project.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know I've done some model training of my own just to get certain things generated, and it is such a giant pain. And quite honestly, if I needed to do it on lightweight hardware or have a model generate, I don't even know where to start for that. Like, I have a beast of a gaming PC at home, and so it's like, okay, I can do it on that and run it on that, and it's fine.
You know, in our experience too, like people want to have the most accurate, and they also want it to run as fast as possible. They want to be using the newest, hottest architectures, and in reality, like, all of those things might not be aligned. Like the hardware might not have the ops to support like this particular architecture. And so you're constantly making trade-offs. And, you know, in general, like to optimize for the use case that you have, you're going to want to lean into the different ways that you can specialize and use what is available. And so that's why we think the best model is for us to kind of go test it out. You know, what you're running in the cloud probably is going to need adaptation in order to make it onto some smart camera. There's a lot of potential roadblocks in that process, from getting the data, training the model, optimizing it for the target device, and then iterating, right? Because we're really just talking about creating the model that allows you to get around the cold start problem. And so what Selma's saying too about like kind of smoothing out that process is owning more of it than just the creation of the model, right? There's this, in order to keep an application that's using machine learning to be like performant and robust, there's monitoring that's involved, and there's continued model training that's often involved. And so we see the path to making a local agent, which can help bring models down onto your device and can help perform some of those processes too for the bigger picture around ML ops for your application.
What kind of What languages or frameworks can people use your models with?
So right now we have, when you have a model that is trained, we have different conversions that you can choose. So you can export your model in Onyx. You can also export it in TF Lite, which presumably would open up other kind of languages like C++ or Java. We're in the midst of getting a new feature up soon that'll allow you to get down to microcontrollers. So being able to flash, models onto Arduinos really, really soon, probably in this week. So that's exciting. So that'll open up like much more of a possibility on where you can run these models. And we're looking to get feedback too. If folks are working on a project and like, hey, I need it to run in this particular language or in this platform, we're more than happy to hear it and figure out if there's a way to support it.
Well, Gabe and I are both looking into doing some AI stuff on microcontrollers. So we'll
That's
definitely
awesome.
work with you on that. That sounds like a great way for us to get started.
Yeah,
Totally.
that and we both got our hands on a Qualcomm RB5 robotics platform.
Oh,
So
nice.
you really want to.
I'm jelly.
Yeah.
Some really powerful hardware there.
Yeah, we
would
want to
just
stretch its
something to do
legs.
with it.
Yeah.
Well, we can get that target now, I think, and we also, as Salma said, are working on the ability to build the bytecode that you would flash onto your Arduino. So we're going to release a bunch of projects on Hackster, showcasing like what we're doing with Arduino Portentia or the BLE Sense that we've been hacking on. Really excited about the Coral Dev Micro too. So probably we'll have some use cases to show off in C++ and Python, and we're hitting these kind of open model formats that are really popular, and definitely open to expanding to other formats. And as we described, like this is kind of a cloud that's giving you that model artifact. So right now the user would meet us at the point of knowing that they need a model artifact, and they would presumably need to know a bit about computer vision to pull that off. But we see things trending towards like really powerful copilots that can stand up a lot of the code, the low-level details around that. And so the model, the custom model is kind of the blocker for a lot of what can be done with code generation. And so that's why we're focused on that now. But we see our platform lining up with like local agents or some of these emerging frameworks to help people generate code more quickly. And we want our agent to integrate well with that, so that people can, at a very high level, say like, I need a perception pipeline that can tell me what's going on in this kind of setting, and a lot of those components will be there for people to iterate and test on.
So you mentioned computer vision models. Are there other kinds of AI models that you can generate?
Well, we're interested in doing more with text, and I think in general, like this is a starting point because the problem's a bit more tractable, like because of the realistic image generation with Stable Diffusion. It's easy for us to package all of this in a way that's not demanding a lot from the user. But we want to not just be a site where you can get around that cold start problem. We want to be able to ingest customer data in different modes, text or image or video. So we're
signals too, like perhaps like sensor readings or things like that. That'd be great. For some of those other modalities, we'll need to continue developing on those generative technologies to kind of allow the user to be able to still, with like very few demands or requirements on their end, be able to produce a model. So that's why we're starting out with image right now, because it's a lot easier at the moment to be able to essentially only require that a user describe their requirements, and then we can produce everything else. But soon enough, we're going to be trying to get all the other modalities supported as well.
Cool. Do you have other questions?
Yeah, I did. So, so I know you both said you got your background's in math, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So what drove you from that to being passionate about ML? Like, I know obviously ML is math driven, but is there anything in particular that really attracted you to it, or?
Well, for me, I guess I've been doing math, but I've been interested in applied math and like optimization. I spent a lot of time doing discrete math for like operations research or decision sciences. I spent a lot of time doing like scientific computing. And so some of the math that I was doing was in simulations for partial differential equations. And it was kind of more empirical and about gaining intuition about really complicated theoretical math. And I think what really kind of the connection that stuck out for me as I was learning about some of that math, I was fascinated by the idea that you could decompose really complicated amorphous things like some generic function into like a basis of functions. I was really interested in like the function approximation problem. And so when I started learning about machine learning and especially deep learning, I could see a lot of those ideas were being, I guess, put into practice in a really exciting way, because deep learning models have shown this really powerful capability of if you can frame like an input-output relationship, then there's a decent chance that you can optimize that model to kind of recover the function that you would expect to associate the input and output. So for me, it was a lot about like the things I was interested in with applied math and functional analysis being put into practice to like solve real world problems that you might face in operations research or optimizing an organization, some complex system.
I think for myself, I was definitely just kind of starting out my math journey, and some of my favorite classes were more around calculus. And I think also I always had an itch to tinker around with something physical. And I guess also being exposed to some of the ideas at the time, machine learning was kind of starting to prop up more and more. I was super interested in bringing such flexible probabilistic software onto something like, so rigid as hardware where you have to know all the constraints at once. I thought it was really interesting to see how those two worlds could collide eventually and, bring about like a whole new era of really interesting robotics or some other technology. So I kind of just wanted to dive in and see what happens.
Yeah, it's just amazing seeing the transition from having to do everything explicitly programmed. And I remember there was an XKCD, it was probably like 2007 or so, that was joking that something as simple as identifying a picture of a bird as a bird was almost magic. And then now it's just you're able to like create short animated clips with just entirely generated content. It's mind-blowing. So it's kind of definitely for those like getting out of college and stuff, that it seems like it's the bleeding edge. It's the next area to go to where things are really exploding, and
Totally.
still plenty of time to kind of ride that initial wave before it truly, because I don't know. It has kind of already hit true mainstream, because I could talk to like my parents and they'll know what ChatGPT is, at least in a very broad sense. But
AI is one of the one of the few new technologies that's gotten me really excited. Like,
is that right?
I've like we've all seen software take over the world, then we all saw the internet take over the world, and I think AI is going to be the next thing that's just going to take over everything. I think we're going to start seeing it used in all applications and all like kinds of devices. Everywhere you go, you're going to be interacting with some AI model somehow. So it's kind of a brave new world right now, isn't it? Like all of this coming up.
It's funny thinking back on it. We were remembering that the last time we were chatting on the Innovation Coffee, it was still kind of emerging. And I think Robert had asked, what we thought about generative AI and if it would get to that point of realism where it could be like dangerous even. And we were saying, we definitely see it is going to keep going that way. And here we are a couple of years later. It's like, it's so much easier, right? Like it used to be where if you were a VFX wizard and you had an actor with a likeness similar to someone's face, you could kind of pull it off. But now it's just prompting it in, right? And it's just like auto 1111, and you can make something pretty plausible. If you bring in all those other skills too, like forget about it. You can't tell what's real, right?
Yeah, I know one
Yeah.
of the things that's making the news a little bit right now is you're hearing about like AI influencers who there's
Yeah.
not even anyone behind it. They have like tons of follows on Instagram and it's like this complete personality. And then you find out later, oh, they weren't even real. They were just,
Yeah.
it's gotten so good and so consistent that you can't tell.
It feels a little bit like this all came out of nowhere. Like, I know it hasn't. I know this has been in the works for years, and we've been promised like human-like AI since the 80s. But
Yeah.
just in the past few years, it feels like everything's finally gotten to that point, and it's just exploded all over.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely been a progression, but it does feel like this year has been like a specific kind of like new breakthrough that has probably opened the floodgates to many more people getting into it. Like, I think for us, it definitely just sparked something, and like we should go and build something to help more people get into this stuff. So it's super exciting to see where it's going, and who knows what other breakthroughs are going just around the corner.
Yeah,
So
I know I have not been stuck in the way I used to be with programming problems anymore, which is nice. It's become my new rubber ducky thing. It's like rather than spending hours staring at a piece of code that's not working quite right, I can try a couple things. And it's like, all right, I'm just going to spin into ChatGPT and literally ask it, what am I doing wrong? And it's like, oh, you missed this completely obvious thing. Yeah.
It's a game changer, definitely. I'm learning about so many new things that I can do. Just as you said, like if there's something wrong, it's quick to find the little issue. It might take a couple of iterations. I've heard people say like they're chatting with ChatGPT and it doesn't do anything exciting. But if you're trying to debug code, if you're trying to connect the dots between two kind of disparate ideas, it's a huge time saver.
Yeah.
So just to bring everything back around to ARM, you have mentioned running on microcontrollers several times now. What kind of hardware are you producing models for?
So right now, you could run a model on a Raspberry Pi, so something that has a little bit more kind of a RAM or
Cortex
A, yeah, kind of architectures. But after this next change that we're working on, we're going to be able to support like target devices like an Arduino Nano 33 BLE Sense, or you could put it on Blue Pill,
Hortensia, Cortex-M.
So Cortex-M kind of architectures we'd be able to support.
So I guess when we're trying to bring models down to that size, we're doing a lot to reduce the input resolution of the images. We're using very like custom architectures. Like we can't fit maybe the bigger architectures like the MobileNet V2. One of these mobile friendly ones won't fit onto devices that constrained. But we can use knowledge distillation and other techniques to learn from powerful models and then get these very tiny models that might have tens of thousands instead of millions of parameters. We can get them optimized for a more narrow task, but one where the speed of inference is emphasized and the specialization to the use case is emphasized, so you don't get the false positives, or you don't try to run a model that won't fit.
Yeah. So actually, one of the ways that this came about is from a YouTube video that we put on Smells Like in 2021. And it was actually a project specifically for running TensorFlow Lite on microcontrollers. We built a droop detection project where we took an Arduino Nano 33 BLE Sense, and we flashed a model that we had used knowledge distillation with. So we started off with a MobileNet V2 architecture, which is kind of like a ubiquitous, really solid architecture, but it's just a tad bit too large to be able to fit onto those smaller devices. And we walked through how to run knowledge distillation to essentially teach a much smaller, lighter weight model that then can be translated into CPy code and then flashed onto the device. So that's essentially kind of the recipe that we're going to bake into the engine so that more people can just prompt, what other things they would like to identify besides like underwater plant versus healthy plant to some other project.
Is that the video link you put in the private chat just now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I pasted that into the YouTube chat, so you don't have to try to type that out manually. But if you see that in the YouTube chat, that's what that video is. And I will go ahead after this, and I'll put all the links that you gave us into the description. So all this will be easily clickable. There's no way I'm going to be able to type in that.
Awesome.
But at least you'll recognize the link and know what it's for.
Exactly.
So what's cool about you targeting like TensorFlow Lite is that is optimized for some of our new neuroprocessors, our Ethos line of neuroprocessors. So you can get a huge speed boost on a board that's got one of those if you're using TensorFlow Lite in one of your models.
Oh, that's exciting. We'll have to test one of those out once we have
Yeah,
that.
I'll get you some links to some boards that have that. I don't have one yet myself. I'm trying to get a hold of one. They're still really pretty new, but you know the speed improvements I've heard from people who have them running these models is just like mind blowing, and it's paired with a Cortex M processor too, so it's all microcontroller size stuff.
Nice. Oh, that's exciting. Yeah. We'll need to put a Hackster project on that.
Yes.
Yeah. What boards are you waiting for that have it?
What's that?
Oh, I was asking Mike what, because you said you didn't get it yet. I'm just curious, what board are you getting soon that has it?
So I know the Aleph Ensemble board has that.
Okay.
And there was another one, I don't remember what it was now, that also has one of those in it.
Have to look for the ensemble, the Aleph Ensemble.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that I know about that I'm trying to get my hands on.
Okay.
That's
I just Googled it because I was curious, and yeah, it looks very interesting. Cool. So one of the things I was curious about, is there a particular use case that you feel where Remyx AI really excels? Is there like a core thing you think that it just does better than the other things you have it do right now? Or are you really focusing on making it generalized?
Well, we do want to generalize outside of vision, but for now, it is really well set up for helping people build like perception pipelines. And so if you were trying to build like a detect, track, classify pipeline you might use in a robotics project or some IoT project, then you might want to specialize the classifier. You might want to run more than one classifier in that pipeline so that you can annotate the track regions of interest with more information. And so we think that it's probably very easy. It's the easiest to get started with an engine like this, creating that model for you. And as we're able to lean into an agent that's helping to gather and annotate more samples and take on more of the ML ops, the maintenance and the logging of the model, we think it'll be the easiest way to get started on a project, because you'll basically describe what you need the model to do. It'll come with better priors than something you could have got from a model zoo off the shelf. And then we'll be able to close the loop by helping the model to ingest more data and improve. So in perception pipelines, especially where it's important to have a model as close as possible to the source of capture, right? You don't want to send a bunch of high bandwidth data at like streaming it to a cloud and depending on internet connectivity for a lot of these applications. So vision is kind of a sweet spot for it right now. But in the end, I think, Remyx AI won't be around for 10 years if all we do is this application. And so we're interested in leaning into automation in general. There's like a product that we offer right now that is for developers, and admittedly developers that know a lot about machine learning to make use of this model. But we want to lower the barrier more and more. We want to be able to serve customers that might not know about machine learning or even programming. We want to have a cloud that's highly automated in solving valuable business problems, and it's using machine learning in the back. And we're invested in our abilities to do perception in a highly customized way, but we see business problems to deal with people in text, and doing things on the edge with hardware is important for a lot of people, but there's a lot of work that's best suited to do in the cloud. So we're really quite open to the kinds of problems and automation we can do. We try to think just in general, like where are really technical workflows where you're limited by manpower and some of these recipes, and can we build them? Can we test them? And can we raise the I guess interaction level to such a point where, you know, someone can just act on like executive decision, like I want this thing, can I just get it in an automated way?
I would say right now where the state of the application is, if you're building, a project that requires computer vision and you want to identify common objects that you might see in the wild, so, anything that you might have in the physical world or that can be represented by internet scale data, we will definitely be able to cover you there. In the next few weeks, when we have added functionality to be able to provide examples that you might have. So if you wanted to, for example, identify your specific mug, like your favorite coffee mug, that might be, might not be represented in the wild necessarily. Then you would be able to extend to, all right, more of like your custom object.
Instance level.
Instance level. So for right now, I think if you can find it on the internet, then we can train on it. And soon enough,
Okay.
if it's something like special to you, we'll be able to extrapolate on that too.
I'm excited because there's actually something like I didn't know about Remyx AI before we had you scheduled to be on. So this is new to me, but I legit have a project where using this will make my life way easier.
Oh, I love about that.
Because I wanted to have it identify just a certain class of something, and it's like you can Google it. There's like other little robots. Essentially, I want a robot to be able to identify other little similar robots, like combat BattleBot style.
That's what Gabe wants to do. Gabe wants to make a smart battle bot.
I do. Awesome. I want it. And so,
what type of attack it's going to use or something, right?
And to lock on one of the things that I've noticed watching a lot of these is that some of the biggest problems come down to just you're essentially doing a remote control car, but you're standing in a fixed position. So you often have it like facing the other way and getting your left and right and knowing exactly where it is. It seems very tough to constantly drive at it. So if I had the ability to identify something and then use that identification to then like lock onto it, but you can't say, oh, I want it. You can't feed it in just a general BattleBot because they vary in looks, but they don't vary that much. There's a few kind of accepted designs, and they're all kind of slightly modified versions of those core designs. So it was just one of those problems that it's like I had kind of come up with solutions, but they were just going to be a giant pain.
Yeah.
And utilizing something like this seems like it'd be so much easier.
That's the idea, precisely. So instead of you having to go and scrape the internet to get all the samples to then be able to get started training, that the idea is you just kind of describe it to us and we can provide that step a little faster.
Where we're hoping to go soon actually is to be able to train a model to identify at the instance level based on just one shot, one image or something like this. So if you were able to get one image of it, we could synthetically generate hundreds of them and do all the techniques that you might do to explode that data set out so that you could train a model pretty robustly. And so that's our goal, I think, is to really nail like few shot and learning efficiently from just a couple of samples. If we can do that and we can do it through text and everything else will just be table stakes if we can ingest data from a stream or your labeled repository. But in this way, we're talking about just really limiting the demand on the users so that you don't have to go build a scrapey bot.
Yeah, I've done or trained an ML model to identify my own face. It was for the purpose of being able to generate images of myself. It is a pain. So I did not enjoy that experience at all, getting it trained and then continually trying to improve it because it was so wrong more times than it was right, and just getting that all ironed up. Yeah, that was a giant pain, and that's like just myself. So I had pictures of myself of exactly me, and so anything that eases my my life, I'm a big fan of.
I love that.
Getting it to go right the very first time is pretty rare because there's so many steps involved, and all the little things have to be kind of tested out. We were just running an experiment this weekend. Speaking of like generating influencers, we were training an LLM to emulate the voice of a podcaster who was really interested in that idea. And I guess you could see that video on our YouTube channel, but it didn't go off right the first time. It's computationally expensive. We're running an A100. We like using Colab and things like that, make it easy to get an A100, but it'll just drop out after 10 hours when you're in the middle of a run and things like that. So we end up running things several different ways in parallel, just to be sure that like we can get the
right.
experiment right in the end.
I think it's the training exercise is interesting, and it's really awesome to learn and be able to say you trained a model, but after you're just trying to build a project, and after a couple times it's not very glamorous.
Yeah.
So we're kind of just trying to help other people just shortcut to the fun parts on actually building the application.
Yeah.
Right?
That's exactly what developers want. Like, we want to go directly into the fun parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I could say I did it once, like you said, then I can say, okay, I've
Documented.
I've done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I've done once in life, home projects and stuff, where it's like, I'm glad I did it. I'm never doing that again in my life.
When in our earliest projects, you really couldn't find data annotation services.
Oh my gosh!
So
yeah.
One thing I can say I'm glad I did once is go through about 8,000 images and use label IMG to annotate all the bounding boxes and really complicated scenes. It was what it took in 2017 to make a custom object detector, but never again.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about Remyx so far, but we haven't actually seen it yet. I don't know. Do you want to try screen sharing and give us a little walkthrough?
I'd love to do that. I'm
right to put you on the spot. We didn't even we didn't discuss this. We didn't test to make sure screen sharing was going to work. So hopefully we can do that.
Oh yeah.
Someone's a pro.
Live demos are always fun. I think
I've never had it go right in my life. It's something always, and it's never your control. Like literally, GitHub went down one day during the middle of a stream. Aiton, my AWS instance, decided that was the moment that it wanted to go down. It's never smooth. All you need to do is click the present button on the bottom of StreamYard if you want to share.
Awesome. I think, let's see, we might have to do that fun, we have to hop back out and hop back in.
Is it telling you the permissions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Sometimes it works even if you say I'll do it later, but
okay.
Later. That's
Let's
where
see.
we're at. Let's see.
Crossing my fingers. Hopefully that works.
It's unlocked.
Okay. We might have gotten away with it. Oh, it looks like we did. Look at that.
Yeah, it's like 50-50. Sometimes
there it is. All right.
There it is. Okay. So basically when you sign in with your login, you can see I'm getting mixed right here. This is what you'll see. So you'll have the homepage where you have the models that have been trained on this page. And then on the right-hand side, you'll have the model assistant. So say, hey, Remyx, I want to train a classifier to identify, let's say, soldering iron versus my 3D printer. Maybe see if it could help us with that. So essentially the idea here, there's a couple different ways. So you can talk with the chat agent directly. If it has all the information that it needs to train that model, it'll tell you, okay, I'm going to train this classifier type model with these labels, and we're going to make it fast. Do you approve of this name? If not, then it'll just ask you more questions to clarify what your requirements are. This one looks pretty good so far, so I'm just going to tell it to, confirm. Let me train that model and say, okay, great. So we're going to train that model in a bit. It takes a few minutes to kind of show up on the middle page here. You'll see it with this name, soldering printer classifier. But I can show you real quick, kind of like one of these other examples. Maybe there might be, let's try this warehouse one. So here's a model that I had prompted before, and it was trained. So what does the warehouse classifier have? So looks like I was training a classifier that could identify cardboard boxes, ladders, plastic bins. So maybe if I'm, making a warehouse bot that needs to identify this stuff, it can do that. If we scroll down, we can see if you know like about data science, or you'd like to confirm that this looks right, you'd be able to see these different curves, and it tells you like, oh, it did pretty well. It has a 95% accuracy, and then we can even test it in the UI. So let me go and find a cardboard box image just to be able to test, does this look right? So let's take a pretty image here. All right, so it looks like I have a nice screenshot there, and you can drop it in, and it's like, okay, it's able to tell that I have a cardboard box pretty well. That's awesome. It's not a ladder or a plastic bin. So you can kind of just, quick test to see if it's actually doing what it says it is. And then from here, you can get code examples on how to run it for these different file types, or you could just download it. So we have these different formats. Let's say I want it in a TF Lite format. It'll take a few minutes, and looks like it's converting. And then after a little while, you'll see it drop into your downloads, and it'll basically be like a zip file that has like the TF Lite model file, and then another file, like a CSV file that has like all the information about what kind of model it is, what are the labels, so you can then plug that into the code. So if I go back to code samples and see TF Lite, here's like a quick boilerplate. How am I actually going to load this function in here, or this model file, and then run inference on it? So it gives you a little example of, like in Python, in this case, how do you run this on whatever project you're building.
That's really cool. I love that you generate the code too to use with this.
Yeah, I think right now that's what we have for folks like who are still basically coding. But as we continue getting further and further along, we're hoping that we can abstract that even further. So it's like you don't even have to know how to. Oh, it looks like it did not convert. Look at that. Of course.
Yeah, it's because it's live.
It's
Live
live.
demos.
It was shy. But essentially, I think it's because my settings are a little shorter here on my callback. But basically, it'll just download the model into your downloads, and from there, you'd be able to just run it.
Have you considered integrating this with like a Visual Studio Code so that somebody can just like chat with your agent there and get the model and the code and have that plugged directly into their whatever project they're working in?
Yeah, that's a great idea, and we've kind of like started building some of that out. So if
We don't have a Visual Studio
Quite yet.
plugin, and that's a good idea. But
Yeah.
we were thinking about that workflow, and we were building out a CLI tool so that from the terminal you could do something a lot like that. So just a lot of these things could be carried out by chat, or just specifying some of the API parameters. And we have a CLI that can do that. But I think it could be updated, or maybe put into a plugin like you suggest.
Yeah, so that's basically what I'm kind of just showing here really quickly. Besides just having the UI, which not everybody's a fan of necessarily, we also want to make that make a plugin or programmatic access really easy. So here's kind of like the beginnings of that. And I think a VS Code plugin sounds awesome, actually. I think that might have to be on our docket soon.
Well, I will sign up to beta test that for you as soon as you get started.
We'd love that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I love it using VS Code plugins directly, or the equivalent for like JetBrains or whatever. It's just, it always feels so slick now. Because both have the AI assistants and things like that. So being able to do those directly in your IDE it definitely feels like you're playing on easy mode.
Yeah, just zooming through the internet. I think that totally makes sense, and especially as this is still a tool that developers are using. I think putting it even closer to your working environment, right? Like it's kind of a pain in the butt to navigate to some other random site just to get a thing done, and then copy stuff or context over into your page.
So how do people pay for this? Like, it's not, you've got a bit of a free credit system, but can you explain a little bit, like, what's the cost of this? How do credits work in Remyx?
I guess it's fair to say we don't have the specifics of a pricing model really figured out, and we need more customers to really get to a good answer on that. But we do think that the price of generating these models is going to only become lower, and that we can probably offer something like a collab-like service. We use Collab Pro because it's the most convenient way to get some new code tested sometimes, or get an A100. And so we think of that pricing model makes sense to us too, where there's a subscription cost and there's also probably some consumption component depending on how much you use. We think that there's going to be some types of developers or organizations that would be more interested in higher consumption, and probably also more interested in some of these features that we have yet to release. So building towards something that could be like a pricing model in the hundreds for subscription for like small team use or something could make sense. And then pricing something like more towards developers. It would be hard to offer all this training for free. So something that we think is like comparable to what do you get out of a Collab Pro subscription?
Yeah, and for those that aren't familiar with Collab Pro, we're specifically talking about Google Collab Pro, which is a service that you can subscribe to for like $50 a month, and then you'd have access to kind of like a Jupyter Notebook IDE interface and Google Cloud Compute. So the idea here is something like that, but instead of having to iterate and hopefully produce something, you do get a model produced at the end of it. And it's comparable. So something like in that, $20 to $50 range a month kind of thing.
On what you say, I mean, this is something we've thought a lot about, and that is that cloud companies today, they don't really work by providing you results for your dollar. It's more about your consumption. And so if you go to Amazon, you'll find lots of services that make it easy if you're, ready to get into the weeds and get technical to build whatever infrastructure you want. But it's not really meant to be like easy turnkey or automated experience. There's other clouds with different emphasis. And so that's why we're really thinking about this like automated cloud vision in the future.
And, we were just talking earlier about how much time you save using this. If you save 1 hour a month of developer time, that more than pays for the $50 subscription for something like that.
Well, not only that, like I was saying, when I did it on mine, I was doing it on a gaming PC, which is running like 3090. It's super power hungry. And it's like, in just the amount of time, like running that full bore to get these things done, it totally sounds reasonable.
That's the hope. And obviously, like, if anybody else has feedback or if they'd like to see other features that, they'd like to see included, we're happy to take that in. I think I'd love to be very developer friendly and very kind of like developer forward in the sense of taking in the folks who are going to be using it primarily and taking their feedback in the development of this thing.
Very cool.
Right. Thank you so much, Terry and Salma, for coming on and telling us all about this really cool stuff that you're building. We're going to wrap things up here in just a minute, but before we do that, we always give everybody an opportunity for a shameless plug. So for people who are watching this video, what do you want them to know? What do you want them to do?
Sign up to our newsletter at Remyx AI, or try the engine, get your first model trained for free. And if that works for you or doesn't, give us feedback and we'll give you more training runs. We're trying to iron out all the kinks.
Yeah, I think if you hop on and then you try it out and then you give us a little feedback, we're more than happy to give you more credits and support your projects while we develop this. So go ahead and try that out and share your thoughts with us.
Awesome.
Very cool.
And I'm going to plug our Discord,
Yep.
Which you two are both in now, as Smells Like ML. So if you want to chat more with Terry and Salma, or with Gabe and I, or any of the other thousands of developers that we have in our Discord, please go ahead and join that. And you'll see us all on there. And I do need to ask, Smells like ML. Is that a Nirvana reference?
Yes.
It is.
And also, Terry has a good kind of background to this one, so I'm gonna let him.
Oh, well, I guess, when I
So
was
true.
in school, I was taking a philosophy class, and we learned about a story about this giant walking nose, and we learned about how the sense of smell is connected to intuition. So I guess that's a bit more of the backstory behind that reference. Is what our emphasis on the blog was going to be, is our sharing our intuition and discovering these techniques.
So yeah, let's also plug that smellslike.ml. That's your blog for,
There you
Yeah.
go.
not just
Yes.
Remyx, but other stuff too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's plenty of goodies, lots of projects that we've gotten into over the years. And if you also find us on hackster.io, we've also shared a bunch of our past projects and including instructions. So if you reproduce any of those or you take a spin on any of that, that'd be really awesome to hear.
You have a product page on Hackster?
We just made that, but if you find us, I think like through our profiles, that's probably where all of our projects are right now.
Yeah, I Googled, or not Googled, on Hackster in the search. I just put Remyx AI, and I see a bunch of your projects, like 10 of them or so.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so they're
Okay.
showing up there. That's a great place to see them.
All right, we'll get links to those profiles in the video description
Yeah.
afterwards.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
All right, Gabe,
Thank
do you have a shameless plug?
Just the normal thing. Sign up for a developer program if you have not already. Oh, and check out our developer hub. I really should be promoting that more. Our developer hub is awesome. Go ahead, and if you need like how-tos or want to see short videos of various ARM-related content, I wasn't prepping too much for promoting the hub, but I saw the link and it's like, oh yeah, I got to do that. So definitely check it out. It's very cool.
And once again, if you enjoyed this video, come watch this every week at the same time, same place. Hit the like and subscribe button so that you get updates from us on that. Once again, thank you so much, Terry and Selma, for being on. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you all next week. Gabe, go ahead and hit that outro button.
Peace.
Thanks, everyone.